Tomorrow, the High Court will deliver its ruling on the legality of the federal government's plan to swap asylum seekers who have arrived in Australia by boat with refugees from Malaysia. Under the deal, Australia will accept 4,000 declared refugees who are in Malaysia awaiting resettlement, and in return will send 800 asylum seekers to that country for processing. Refugee advocates have told the court that the government cannot vouch for the safety of people sent to Malaysia, which is not a signatory to the UN Refugee Convention. The governments of Australia and Malaysia say the people will be treated with dignity and respect. But Lateline has confirmed that the group will not be issued with formal work permits, and the UNHCR will not provide any extra health and education facilities beyond those already used by existing refugees in Malaysia. Southeast Asia correspondent Zoe Daniel reports from Kuala Lumpur.
If the High Court gives the Malaysia deal the go-ahead tomorrow, the asylum seekers transferred from Australia will soon find themselves here in the coastal town of Port Dickson, just over an hour from Kuala Lumpur. This centre has already been refurbished and is ready to receive people, although security guards remain cagey about its purpose. When we visit, caretakers at this site next door are busy packing to move out. They say they're going to be accommodated elsewhere for a year so that this camp can also be done up and used to house asylum seekers from Australia. We've been told that up to 8 transit centres are proposed, and while only 2 leases have actually been signed, it's clear that these centres would only accommodate a few dozen people at a time. This is the other site in Port Dickson that's still under renovation, a former seaside hotel. It can hold about 60 people, but they're not welcome here either. Local opposition MPs reject the location of the centre in a residential and tourist area.
Local people oppose this project because why? As we can see that the whole fencing, the whole project already totally spoiled our environment here. And this is an international tourist destination.
There's the big black fence here, and this is the tennis court, which will be part of the centre.
One of the centre, yes.
They're also concerned about the fate of the asylum seekers after they're released from the transit centres and whether they'll stay in Port Dickson. Malaysia is rife with religious division, and opponents point out that the deal allows the Islamic ruling party to send mostly Christian refugees to Australia in return for mostly Muslim asylum seekers.
Be enough people here. In PD, lot of people jobless. So brought up from outside, they coming here. We don't know what is the idea. So we also don't know them. And also I coming to understand they also only brought up here Muslim only. That's why a lot of question. Afghanistan and Sri Lankan only Muslim. Why?
If the deal's allowed to go ahead, the asylum seekers will be held for a maximum of 45 days before being released into the Malaysian community. They'll then be encouraged to get jobs and to find their own housing to become self-sufficient as soon as possible.
If needed, they will receive limited bridging accommodation and finance. The arrangement says that those transferred from Australia will have access to jobs, healthcare and education. But critics still say the group will in fact have no legal rights.
There's a huge gap between what was promised by the Australian immigration minister and what is in fact in the arrangement itself. There is no effective nor legal protection to these 800 asylum seekers.
Those transferred won't receive an official work permit. The right to work relies on an informal undertaking from Malaysia that they won't be arrested for working illegally. An Immigration Department spokesperson says extra maternal and mental health services will be provided as needed. But the UNHCR has confirmed that it won't be providing any extra healthcare or education services for the group beyond what already exists for refugees in Malaysia.
What we understand is that the 800 will access the same facilities and services that are currently being provided for existing refugees and asylum seekers. There won't be alternative services provided by us.
Lawyer Chiwi Lim says there's no way that Australia can vouch for the well-being of the group, the key question being considered by the High Court.
All it does is to add 800 bodies into the same system, save that both governments say that we will give a gold card or a special card to these 800, in that they are being exempted from prosecution under our Immigration Act. But beyond that, there is really no access or rights, legal rights as we all understand it, to livelihood, education or healthcare.
Children of those transferred will be able to attend schools like this one, which is funded by a Korean doctor and his wife and staffed largely by volunteers. The schools get limited help with things like learning materials from the UNHCR, but those running them admit that they don't provide anything close to standardised learning.
They're not always teaching them correctly, or they don't have a curriculum they're following, or they have kids that are age 5 with kids that are age 14 and they're teaching them the same thing. So the level of education they're getting is not even remotely close to what it would be if they were in a government-funded school.
Becca Moskowski has seen many children pass through here. Some of Burmese origin have been legally resettled. But Afghan families who are rarely offered legitimate resettlement have often taken boats.
And the students who have gone, some of my students have gone, and their families are now settled into Australia, and they're no longer on the island, they're actually on the mainland. They're doing quite well.
School bus driver Abdullah has been here for 4 years. He's watched about 24 families take boats to Australia, while only a handful have been resettled through the UNHCR process.
It's just because most refugees are left without any option. People have spent so much time living in Indonesia and Malaysia without a future. I'll give an example of myself. I've been living in Malaysia for the past 4 years, and if you talk about the legal means of resettlement through UNHCR, that takes a long time, so people are desperate and they tend to take to the boats.
Like all refugees here, he's waiting to see what the High Court decides. But he says even if the deal does go ahead, the impact on the people smuggling business will be only temporary.
People will start taking boats back to Australia because there won't be any deal to send them back to another country.
The High Court ruling will be delivered tomorrow afternoon. Zoe Daniel, Lateline.
And Lateline requested interviews with Malaysia's Home Affairs Minister and the UNHCR, but they declined, saying they're waiting for the outcome of the High Court case.